Have you ever had the deep longing to travel and explore new cultures, places, and people, but you're not able to jet off just yet? Well, you're just in luck. I'm here to provide audio experiences that take you on imaginative journeys across the world, exploring all kinds of new places, both near and far. Welcome to Pieces of Travel. I'm your creator, Marisha, a travel and music aficionado, if you will. Each episode, we'll be traveling to a new destination through storytelling and tunes based on local music culture. My biggest wish is to make travel accessible for all and trigger curiosity, expand mindsets to consider new cultures, inspire travel, and learn something with me along the way. Buckle up and hang tight because we're ready for takeoff. Hello, my fellow travelers. I'm so happy to be back after I took a little hiatus for a while. So, welcome. If you're still here, it means the world, and I thank you so much for hanging around. Seriously, it means the world to me. I've made some updates to the pod, and I'm really, really excited about them. Everything is starting to flow and resonate more with what I had been dreaming this podcast to be, and it all just feels really good. I simplified my website. Yes, if you didn't know, I have a website, and I created a new logo and tagline that resonate more with the brand and what I'm trying to do. So go take a look at everything and tell me what you think. Today is a happy, happy day because I am finally releasing a story that is so long overdue. One, to be honest, I thought may never be. This experience left me speechless for months afterwards and unable to describe it really. And it took quite some time to find the words worthy enough to describe our experience because this trip was incredibly, incredibly special, yet also so very mentally, physically, and emotionally challenging. And even though I've studied Spanish for what feels like a lifetime, in this episode I do struggle with some Spanish pronunciations, so either bear with me or laugh along with me because it's pretty funny. Yeah. Torres de Paine. I can't pronounce you, but I'm trying my best, okay? For a music playlist this episode, I've compiled a list of sounds heard throughout the park. A very great, relaxing playlist for falling asleep, I'd say. So hop onto Spotify and give the playlist a spin. You can find it under the Pieces of Travel podcast playlist profile. I know, it's a mouthful. Try saying it 3 times fast. Anyway, let's enjoy a taste of Patagonia. It was a warm morning, waiting to get colder. It's Saturday, and you're headed for the airport in Santiago, Chile, to take a 3.5-hour flight down to Punta Arenas, where penguins can be seen. Hop on a bus for 3 more hours to another small town in the southern part of the country called Puerto Natales, where the sun sets at 11 p.m. and rises up at 7 a.m. And have a quick stay before waking up before the sun for yet another 2-hour bus ride to the entrance of Torres de Paine, the Chilean side of Patagonia. Patagonia straddles both Chile and Argentina and is located at the southernmost part of South America, closest to Antarctica. There are trails and activities within both accessible sides, each giving you a different view and experience. You have to make reservations way in advance if you want to snag a dedicated camping spot or cabin bed, as they do limit the number of people entering the park each day. There are 2 trails in the park for trekking and hiking, the W Trail, which extends along the southern half of the park, or the O Trail, which takes you through the entire park, including the W Trail, and you may choose to hire a guide if you wish, though not necessary. You arrive at the west entrance and take the bus a bit further in. You're greeted by a cute little cabin cafe and already incredible view of Lago Pejo. The 45-minute wait there for the ferry, one of the two ways to get into this section of the park, leaves your imagination running as you stare out at water so ice blue, the greenest rolling hills you've ever seen, and snow-capped mountains. The nerves and excitement start setting in. More nerves because you didn't prepare or train at all for this trek and have never attempted anything relatively close. Little do you know, the next 5 days are going to be some of the hardest you've ever experienced, hiking 46 miles west to east while carrying 20 pounds throughout the entire trek, battling with wind, rain, or sun. At some points, all three at once. Once the ferry drops you off, it's go time. You're officially inside the park where all the fun happens. First off, you stop to grab a snack, adjust all of your gear, and remove some layers. It's quite a bit warmer than you had anticipated, as sun rays strongly beat down with no sign of shade to be seen. After applying sunscreen, it's time to start your first hike up the west side. The end goal being to see the most famous glacier by the end of the day, one of the largest on the planet. The start of the path seems pretty easy and flat. If the entire trail is going to be this level of difficulty, you'll do just fine. But soon enough, after a half an hour into the trail, the story completely changes as terrain becomes more difficult and roller coaster altitude is constant. About 2 hours into the trail, there's a great outlook with the first peak and a giant iceberg to stop for a quick rest and snap a few photos. Looking up, you spot two condors, the national bird, slowly soaring high above, as if they have duties to monitor the park. It's understood that it's a rare occasion to see a condor, so making the time to sit and appreciate them hunting high above sounds like the best idea. Once they decide to move along, you do too, and continue on for another 3.5 hours close to the cliff's edge with a lovely view of the winding blue lake. Your feet are really starting to bark, and just when the thought of sitting down comes to mind, you round the corner and realize you've made it to the first campground for the night at Refugio Gray. Once a bit more rested and checked in, the attendant leads you over to your fully stocked tent for the night with glorious mountains in the backdrop. There were 2 time slots for dinner, and choosing the latter, you decide to dart up the remainder of the trail just a bit further to see the mighty glacier before turning in for the night. After only a few minutes, you arrive at a spectacular viewpoint and decide to scale up a rocky hillside to catch the best views. Wind is fierce atop the hill, but it's all worth it as Glacier Gray sits unbelievably breathtaking right in front of you, spanning over 28 kilometers in length. Even from the higher viewpoint, it takes over both landscape and mind. Your body is still in shock, and the first day is settling in now. After getting a feel of one of the most grandiose sights in the world, it's time to head back to the Refugio for a sit-down 4-course meal complete with fresh bread, a must at every meal, and a necessity to fuel your body for the intense output you're exerting through the park. Day 2 is the reverse of day 1, trekking back down the west side on the same trail to return to where you started, the journey to stay the night at a Refugio favorite. Refugio Vertiz Paine Grande. The morning starts off nicely, but mist soon appears as you leave the campsite. You've overheard some fellow trekkers talking about rain, and although you're on the same path for the second day in a row, the experience turns out totally different. You notice more details about a few small waterfalls that weren't recognized yesterday, and visibility is still fairly decent. About halfway into the trail, a stop is necessary to devour the sack lunch that was given to you at breakfast, and the same viewpoint overlooking Lago Grey once again seems like the best choice. While enjoying your dry tuna sandwich and personal portion of nuts, Rain decides it's going to make a grand entrance. At first, ever so lightly, but intensing every minute. After swallowing what food remains, you throw on a rain jacket and quickly move along as the wind has joined the rain. The only way to avoid getting completely soaked is to keep your head down. It feels like much longer than 2 hours as the battle with the diagonal rainfall has been rough. But you reach the familiar stretch and realize that the refugio is finally in eyesight. A wave of relief washes over you and you hurry to the finish line. After settling into the dorm and bundling up after a well-deserved hot shower, you realize the last 2 days of hiking are starting to catch up to your body, and a harsh realization comes to mind. This is the last chance to decide to leave the park before there is no way out other than walking out. The next 2 days become a painful blur. As you make your way deep into the park on Tuesday, different elements present themselves and intensity increases. Crossing suspension bridges over wide-mouthed roaring falls with ice-cold water feels like something you'd see on a movie as you make your way toward Mirador Francis, peering down on the water, watching it take anything new in its path. Once arriving at the foot of the trail that leads up to Francis, there's a campsite to leave your pack while climbing to the viewpoint. With a total elevation gain of 1,801 feet through forest and rocky mountainside, a much welcome 360 view of the French Valley and baby blue Lago Pejo, the view is well worth all the pain getting there. Glaciers fit snug in between mountain crevices and small waterfalls, snow-capped summits, the greenest hillside eyes have ever seen, and clouds hover above. It's a surreal view, something only seen in magazines or movies until now. Again, having a dry sandwich and snacks while resting up for the descent down while being constantly pushed by the ferocious, icy cold wind, you take your necessary photos and videos and soak it all in so deeply to permanently imprint it into your memory. After climbing back down at a faster rate than going up, you grab your bag after a quick rest and continue along the trail toward Refugio Los Cuernos. At this point in the trek, joints are beginning to give sharp signals, and it's possible to cause serious injury at any moment from here on. The park has a span of ecological zones: Andean desert, steppe, forest, and shrublands, making the park home to a vast amount of life, including pumas. Day 4, you begin along a new lakes elevated side trail and spend most of the day walking through expansive grassy rolling plains with cow manure, mud, and gusts strong enough to put you on your rear. Managing the wind is much trickier than it seems, stopping every few minutes to brace oneself in order to keep boots grounded. The atrocity pushes and pulls you along for the entire day, giving painful windburn to any skin left exposed. Refugio Chileno, the favorite refugio of all of them, is the end goal for the day, and you may try to ascend to Torres del Paine if the weather permits. Weather in Patagonia is crucial for your time in the park and dictates if you will have a pleasant or visible hike. Each campsite has very detailed weather information for the next 5 days posted on a bulletin board that's updated each day, including wind direction, temperature, rain and snowfall percentages, and more. This refugio is really special and hard to book. It sits on the path up to Torre de Paine, saving you half of the time on the trek up, but making the previous day longer. Horses are used to deliver necessities to the refugio, such as kegs, paper toiletries, and food ingredients. You name it. Once you arrive after 5.5 hours, you've had sand thrown in your face, knees and ankles so badly swollen and stabbing joint pains, you decide it's best to check the weather for the last leg of the trip to see if you can push it to the next day. Looking at the weather forecast, it seems as if it's going to be clear in the morning with lighter winds before a storm rolls in early afternoon. The decision to wait until tomorrow is settled, and you rest up having a few drinks instead. At dinner with friends made along the way, it's confirmed to attempt an ascent starting at 4 a.m. to see the Torres before daybreak. The final day has come, for better or worse. Since the hike up to Torre de Paine has been pushed for a daybreak, it's imperative to not fall behind schedule much since you have a bus ticket this afternoon. Waking up after not enough hours of sleep and the shooting pain still accompanying, you run a little behind and miss the opportunity to join the group, but instead leave about half an hour behind them. It is so quiet you could hear a pin drop out here. Pitch black, perfectly still, with little bird songs here and there, getting those awake a good morning. The hiking starts off nice and flat, going through what seems to be some type of forest. You can't see anything other than what the headlamp is exposing right in front of you. After trailing over numerous wooden bridges, you start to feel the climb kicking in. It's time to switch gears and get moving. The sun is providing more and more light as you start making the way up, and suddenly the trail is right next to the side of a cliff. You're now above the treetops, and the sunrise is in view. An incredible moment and much needed boost. There are rumors this trail is the most difficult of them, with a total climb of 2,956 feet up. Getting there is very strenuous. Majority of the major ascent there are giant rocks everywhere. You have to scramble through. There's no way around them. If you can't make it through, you won't see the view. After scrambling for some time, a joint has had its fill and is telling your body not to go any further. Every step is incredibly painful, as if someone is stabbing you with a knife. No amount of weight released on the hiking poles is helping anymore. You thought it might get better overnight with rest, but that's not the case. But you didn't come here and get all this way to miss out on the most special view that only a limited number of people are able to see. So, you push through. What is finally spotted behind the enormous boulders is astonishing and gives you just enough excitement to make it to the finish. Towering rocks give a grand stature above frosty blue water as frigid wind starts to blow in. It's extremely cold after resting a few minutes and refueling with some homemade pan de pascual, so you quickly go jump on the rock in the water, take a few photos to show off your prize back home, and start back. The descent down isn't any easier than the ascent. The wind is horrendous by this point, and since you're at a higher elevation, you have to stop to take cover behind a boulder every few minutes in order to avoid being pushed down or over the side of the cliff. The pain hasn't worn off, but at least you're much quicker, even with other elements of nature working against you. The remainder of the trekking on this last day is all downhill to the bottom, where the bus will pick you up and your journey will be complete. As you make the way down, it's a bittersweet next few hours. Sitting in the station, resting and waiting, along with all the other people that you've been along with on this journey, is quite special, as everyone reminisces and tells stories to those beside who have experienced it. As you board the bus and find your seat with complete exhaustion, you think of how lucky you are to have been able to accomplish this, but how extremely grateful you are to be leaving as soon as you close your eyes. This podcast is a reflection of my personal journey and experiences that in no way should solely limit and define a location.